Hey everybody, thanks for checking out another video. So in this video I want to discuss a new app that I've made for my desktop environment, my browser OS website. Basically I want a way for people to be able to message me. I haven't really had such a system set up, and I like to do client-side stuff, so I finally found a protocol called Nostr Protocol that'll allow me to kind of essentially do a decentralized WebSocket method of setting up like a messenger client, like a direct messaging client. And yeah, like let's just jump right into a demo. So I'll show the demo first, and then I'll kind of explain what I did. So basically, I've this is still not in production yet, and if you see any of my public key, it won't be my public key permanently. I'm going to be changing it. So just so you know. So basically, when I log in, this is the Messenger app. I'm still working on it a little bit. It's not completely 100% in production. When it is, it'll be on dustandbrett.com. That's my main where I put this app most of the time. Um, but yeah, basically what it does is it can log me in because of one piece of this Nostr protocol. It's made kind of made for the web, and it's a protocol of just doing different communications and sending events basically. And it has a browser extension, like several different browser extensions, where I can kind of ask it for the keys to be able to log in. So if you have one of these browser extensions and you use the Nostr protocol for the social networking aspects of it, or for whatever other aspect, because it can do a lot of stuff, it'll just log you in automatically. And I've added like these little red and green dots are for the different relays that you connect to, which essentially are servers that are kind of all over the world that people can host. And that's a bit of the decentralized concept of it right there. As you can see here, I attempt to connect to like 7 on load. So every time you do a message, you're essentially putting these encrypted messaging events on 7 different relays. And some of these relays also do streaming to other relays. So it's a way of kind of spreading the information a little bit. But by default, the Nostr protocol doesn't really do message passing between relays. So there is kind of a main issue where if you are on one relay and you send a message and someone else is on another relay, they're not going to get that message. So that's like one of the key downsides. But to have this technology work, which has a lot of upsides, that was kind of like the accepted downside, basically, that I've gone with. Some other cool things you'll see here, like this list here, essentially it looks on all the relays for any messages and makes like a contact list of recent messages you've had. I've tried to make it look like other messaging clients that we've seen in the past, as you know, other messengers. Um, I kind of like the style. You see the picture at the top here. This comes from the logged in profile. You can see anybody's profile through these WebSocket connections. So mine, I've kind of added a banner here. I've got my picture. And as you can see here, I've got a blue check mark for verified, which is kind of cool. And that essentially is another system that this Nostr protocols kind of suggest a way to do, where you can kind of verify by domain. So dustandbrett.com, I have a file, a special file on there that anybody can read from their websites if they, or their clients, to see that I at least own that domain. So it's not the highest level of verification, but it's something. Like, I mean, in my case, it's pretty legitimate. I would say, like, if someone, it's dustandbrett.com, so it's like, okay, the guy who owns that is probably Dustin Brett. But in other cases, it might be more generic, or it's just a domain where it's just like a throwaway. But in my case, I've had this domain for over a decade. Um, so here's the list here. You can see as you hover over the different chat messages. All of these are just generic made up ones. I'm just still testing it and stuff, but this works. So with the browser extension, it logged me in. One cool thing you can do here, I'll copy my own key. It's a little confusing sending a message to myself. Actually, no, I can send messages to other people here. Here's another feature I have. If you right click here, you can see I can do start an end-to-end encrypted chat. I can copy the npub address, or I can copy the hex address. And these are essentially, it's almost like the usernames that you can find people with. So let's say in this case of this one Dustin user I've made, I'll copy that npub address, and then I can create a new message where I could put anyone's address in. So I'll paste the address that I've got copied, and I press enter, and it's going to open up that chat. And so I've tried to format this and make it look kind of cool. Like I've got all the dates and stuff, the back and forth, the icons. I've done a lot of work here to try to make it look cool. Interestingly, this is a square. That's supposed to be a circle. All of a sudden, this is a square, which is kind of funny. That's okay. I think it's probably somehow inherited the shape of this button. But it's, like I say, it's still work in progress. I don't have this on my production site yet, but it's getting there. It mentions here the encryption. It's using an encryption called AES 256 CBC, which, from what I've read, it's not the best one in the world. And there's other, yeah, I mean, like, first off, there's that. It's not the best encryption. Second off, all of these events are public. So even though the messages are encrypted, it's not encrypted who communicates with who. And there is a way to make that more hidden, but it doesn't work as cool for like this messaging client. And I'm not trying to go the most private encrypted possible. I'm just gone the level of this AES 256 encryption, which is pretty good, but it's not the best, like I say. So yeah, that's a kind of a demo of the chat client. And what we're going to do is I have another browser. I have Firefox open as well. And we'll go to Firefox and we're going to open up Messenger as well. And here I don't have the browser extension. So this is what experience I expect most people to get on my site. And this is what I think is a cool idea for how to contact me. Is you'll go to my site and then I've got it to default load a preloaded contact. And the cool thing is the way this preloaded contact is actually coming from the same file that does the verification, which is on my domain. So it kind of makes sense to me, like whoever takes my software and hosts it, if they host another instance of daedalOS with this net messaging client on their domain and they have a verification file set up, maybe they will want that other users come and open the app for them to be in the contact list. So I thought it made sense to do the same. So here I am in the contact list. So imagine this is some other user in Firefox, let's say. It automatically creates a private and public key. I'm still working on this. I don't have the edit profile button. I don't have the ability to copy the profile that I made. So like this is another work in progress thing. But basically it's another cool concept is that like I wanted it so that users don't have to log in necessarily. So basically as soon as you go to my site, you're going to get a profile and you can decide to keep that as your profile, or you could decide to do the browser extension method and then refresh the page and it'll log in as that. And again, I'll be on the list. I'll be at the top of the list because it's just the way I set it up in the contact list. So anyone can kind of contact me that way. So when you click me, let me just cough here. You'll see here it also gets a little bit of information about me. It's the same as like the Twitter profile type of idea where you can kind of put embedded information about yourself on these relays. So there's like the information about me, and then I can, pretending that I'm a user, I can send a message and say, hey, Dustin, I love your website. Enter. And boom, right away, I get a message. Where did that message go? That came from into Chrome. And you'll see here in Chrome, I got a message from the user that I created, the npub, whatever the user's name is. He doesn't, in this case, he didn't set a username. Once I'm going to have the edit profile options. And even with just the public and private key, which you can actually see in the IndexedDB database, you could take those and go to another Nostr client that has the edit profile functionality kind of fully created. And you could just edit your profile there and then come back to my thing. So there you go. So I'm right here. I say, click me, and I can say there, and I can continue the conversation. Thanks. And then on the Firefox side, they got the thanks message, although they're reversed, interestingly. Yeah, actually, I think this is backwards. Okay, that's just something that I've recently broken. But again, work in progress. Still a pretty cool feature. The messages came in. The reason that they're flipped is just because when I was working on this ability to do these timestamps and group messages, I think I must have inverted the sorting. I know where the bug is already, but that's just the fun part of development. I'm too excited, so I needed to show it right away. And conceptually, it's still the same idea. And you can see here, this is the user, but he would also see my banner when he's talking to me, which is kind of a neat thing. And I think I actually have a demo of another one of those here that I've communicated with. Was it this Jack one? No, it wasn't Jack. I have message support too. I don't have attachments in my client yet, but it can read the messages. And I don't remember who I was talking to that had that banner. Yeah, I've lost whoever that guy was who I was talking to that had a banner. Oh, I think that was when I was testing creating new messages, so I don't have that one. But that's the demo, at least, of the client. And now I want to talk a little bit about the protocol just to kind of get you guys an idea for it. So this is the main website for it, nostr.com. I'm pronouncing it Nostr in the idea that it's like Nostradamus. Like there's a popular iOS client for doing the social media aspects to it, and for doing direct messages called Damus or Damus. So it's like Nostradamus. So in that way, I think calling it Nostr is not unreasonable. But this is the basic idea right here. It's basically the entire thing is just there's these relays, there's these dumb boxes that you can send these JSON objects to, and if they're shaped in a certain way, then they'll be accepted. And if they're signed properly by your public-private key connection combination, then they'll be kept in there. And you can send them to many relays, and some of the relays will talk to each other, but that's not part of the protocol as of yet. I think it should be, personally. But that's it. That's the basic concept, is these relays that just take these messages. And then another concept to it too, from the client side, is that you do these filtering requests via WebSocket connections, where you can say, I want all messages of this kind from this author or to this author. And that's the way that you can kind of filter to get just the events that you care about. And then you can do more massaging to the code to kind of get it to look the way that I've done. that's the basic concept, and they kind of explain it here. There's really not a lot of meat to this website here as to like what to do, and I found that to be the case in general for working with this protocol. Is it's still very early days, and I've kind of just like winged it and figured it out myself for the most part. They talk about it a little bit, like from a development point of view, very little. But they do talk about different clients you can use here. These are some web clients that I got started with. One's like the Snort one here is here's an example of, oh no, this is Iris. Sorry. This one's Snort here, and you can see that most of these messages here connect with the users that I had here because I'm logged in as the same user. This is what I did for testing, was use a kind of an established client to see like that this part works. All of these little robot pictures are essentially just like no avatar. And in that case, I've just used this generic SVG that I created, but they've decided to like grab from a random avatar database. But basically, it works the same. And these clients, direct messaging is not their main focus. Like if you go to the Snort's webpage here, and I find Nostr to be a little slow sometimes. Like I think it's supposed to be loading something right now, maybe not. But there is a way to get like here's my profile, by the way. But there is like a social media, maybe it's better with the Iris client. Yeah, with the Iris client here, it suggests different people you can follow, and it's more of like a Twitter, X, Threads, Blue Sky, Mastodon style thing. But what I'm using it for is almost just purely the direct messaging thing. And I've actually just to the point where there's literally no looking at posts. I'm only focusing on the kind of event. They're called kinds, and I'm focused on the ones that are about direct messaging, basically. And it works. So I was pretty hyped about it. It talks about relays here a bit and the different protocol types. They have these things called NIPs. I've been calling them NIPs, which are essentially almost like the RFCs, which is like a review for consideration. Essentially, it's a suggestion for what the protocol could be, but people are already building relays and building clients based on this. So I don't think anything's set in stone. If you go to their GitHub, they have a really good explanation for how they're not like Twitter and how they're better than a peer-to-peer network in a lot of ways. Other than that one concept I was saying about how like the messages are only on the relays you send them to. Other than that, it's pretty cool. I think they do a good sell here. I don't know about all the like the crypto connected stuff or paying to be doing posts. It's not my game. It's not what I care about because it's the social media side. I just want to be able to do direct messaging, but perhaps that's the future. Who knows? We'll see how this rolls out. And that's one of the issues. Like I want to have a communication protocol, so I've gotten this one where anyone can do a relay, and I'm just going to keep moving relays until eventually they're all gone. Like cuz I hope my app can last for 10, 20, 30 years. So if in 30 years there's like no Nostr relays left, maybe I'll run my own, or maybe then it's time to find a new protocol. Hopefully there is one. But I've decided to focus on this one because it makes sense and it's easy to build around with the WebSockets thing. So that's the basics of that. And as you see here in the NIPS thing, they talk about all the different NIPS. This is actually an old one here. Here's the new link. Yeah. There's actually really good explanation here about like what everyone is. The first one is basically just the explanation of how the protocol works. And then there's very few other ones I'm using. The encrypted message one, number 4, I'm using, which is basically explaining how they just like use this encryption, do it this way. Like nothing's set in stone really. As far as how you build these messages, but the relays either take them or don't. So, and they either work with the other clients. That's another thing, is it's interoperable too. So if you see here, when I go back to that Snort client to my direct messages, it was this one here 6 minutes ago. This I have a problem decrypting right now. My browser extension is not working with Snort, but this message 6 minutes ago is the same message that I was just working with here, like 1C9. 1C9. So the messages I make are interoperable with any Nostr client, which is another thing I thought was pretty cool. This is how the browser extension one works. It's very simple. It just adds like an object to the window object. So any website would be able to see this and access it. And it keeps your private key private, which is important. Essentially, your private key is like your password, but it's worse. Because if you lose your private key or if someone else gets it, you can't change your password. You basically have to make a new profile. I think they need another NIP for like when you're compromised, some like redirect event you can make where you sign it with like, I knew my old signature and I know my new signature, and you're the first one to redirect. But then I guess as soon as it's compromised, other people are going to start doing redirects. So I don't know how to solve that. That's the cool thing about these though, is like people are trying to solve this problem of how to make a network like this that's can last. And I think they're getting closer than most have. And there's still some future ones that I want to build on that I'll discuss in a few minutes here. Some of the things that are cool in this page is where it lists all the different kinds of events. The only one that I really focus on most of the time is the encrypted direct messages. But there's a thing where you can do public channels. There's like wallet crypto type stuff. There's a variety of different things. So I've gone over the different clients there, the different NIPs as they call them. The relay that I'm connected to is this one called Relayable, which I think is pretty clever because I want a reliable relay, and then I found this one called Relayable. I was like, okay, I got to use these guys. They have a few all over the world. I think I'm using these guys, and I'm using a few. They say that they stream. We currently stream these relays to help decentralize, but I don't really know what stream means in this case. I'm hoping it means the events get sent to the other relays. That's like how I'm dreaming that it is, but I'm not sure if that's the case. But I'm also connected to, I think, this one. Another sneaky thing is I tried to connect to some of these, like the snort one, but when I try to do it and I try to publish a direct message, it tells me something like, basically like I'm not a member or something. So I think that's part of the fact that these relays don't have to be completely free. They can essentially be public to read, but to write, you have to kind of do these zaps where you basically spend crypto, which I'm not interested in. So I'm focused on these free relays. And that's, I think, what these relayable people want to do. I hope there's just more people like this. I hope the Wikipedia Foundation does it. I hope governments run these relays where essentially they're just like buckets for events where they're and their eyes off. I think that's a cool idea. So hopefully that happens. Here's a list of relays. Like there's 830, so they're kind of all over the world. And you can, I don't know how many you should connect to. Like I say, I was connecting to 7 or trying to, but there's a lot of them. So I think that's pretty cool. That you could connect to different ones. And when you pick one, you get information about it. So like, let's say for that one of those relayable ones, there's a relayable here. If you click it, it'll tell you, it'll do a connection, a WebSocket connection. You see the address right there. It's as simple as that to connect to it. And it'll tell you which like NIP protocols it essentially supports. And some of them aren't in here that I would have expected to be. And it talks about downtime and lots of downtime here. So that's not really reliable, but at the same time, they have multiple ones all over the world. And if you go into DevTools here, you can actually see in the network. Let me refresh the page and open Messenger again. When you open Messenger, you can see I'm filtered by WebSocket connections. So you can see all the WebSocket connections it opens here. This one's just because I'm running localhost, but these 7 connections here, one of them failed, and you can see it represented here by these green dots as well, and the one red dot where the connection finished. But you can look on any of these and you can see the messages kind of going through. So let's say this Canadian relayable one, I can see at the start here where you filter, you kind of say, I want these messages from this author and I want these. And I haven't got all this completely figured out yet, but this is the communication going on right here. So you can even just kind of see it behind the curtains kind of thing. Let me reload this one more time. And it reloads really quick. I find it to be a pretty cool protocol in that way. Like, it's essentially a free backend because I don't want to have a backend, and I like even more the idea of these relays. I even have something like this already. Like I have IRC, and the IRC protocol actually has WebSocket now, version 3 of IRC protocol, and the main server that I recommend connecting to is this Libera chat, which is actually pretty massive. Like if we look at the stats here, when I just connected to it, it's like 30,000 users on here. So this was what I used before, but IRC has a huge issue with the fact that the messages aren't retained. There's no persistence. I mean, there's a way to do persistence, but it's pretty bad. So if someone were to send me a message and I'm not on IRC, I'm not going to get that message, basically. That's not the case here with Nostr. If someone sends it at any point, it's on a relay, and I can at some other point come and look at it. So that's a game changer to me. So this is the lists. So as far as development goes, here's some of the tools I use. I use 2 basic things, 2 libraries. There's one called nostr-tools that I used, which has some pretty simple stuff like for making private keys. I didn't use it for too much else. I think, yeah, making private keys is almost one of the few things I used it for, honestly. I might have used it for something else, but I can't remember at the time. Oh, no, all these other NIP things like encoding, decoding, encrypting, all that stuff it works great for. So that was really useful for that. And then the other piece of the puzzle that I used was this nostr-react, because I have it's a React app, and these hooks will allow me to have a provider where you just give it relays and say connect to these relays, and then just you're connected, and then just send the events, and then it just deals with the events. So then nostr-tools allows me to build the events, and then nostr-react allows me to kind of send the events. And those two together kind of take away all the complicated WebSocket communication encryption type stuff that I don't want to think about when I'm just trying to like work with events and how to show them and how to organize them. And that's how to build the messenger from my point of view, from what I cared about. And then here's my code too, if you want to check it out. The code's already on GitHub, but I haven't, obviously there's some bugs I'm still working out. It's daedalOS is the name of the project. In components, apps, messenger is the folder here. And I've actually got quite a few things I've made already now that I look at it. Like, I've just been building it for a few days, but I just keep making more things. Like, there's all these different functions to do, formatting and various cool things. I've made some hooks and made that kind of stuff. It's a React app. It's like an app within an app. But it's been a lot of fun to make, and you can check it out there, what I have so far. And then, yeah, I'm just talking about these nips a bit more. They're using this Betch32 encoding for the keys. And like I say, the public key is almost like your username, and your private key is your password. But it's very important. If you lose that password, they're too connected to ever go apart. So you essentially lose your public key if you lose your private key, and nothing's changeable or anything like that, as far as I can see at the moment. So don't lose like your nsec key is how the keys are prepended. There's an npub and an nsec, so just be careful with that one. I've talked about the nip4 and how it does encoding. It's pretty simple, like how it makes the messages in the end. Like this encoding stuff, I don't do that. That's the nostr-tools doing that. This one's for how the browser extensions work. Very simple, like you just pass the decrypt and encrypt. You don't get the private key. So you just say, I have some data I want to encrypt, and then it encrypts it and just gives you it back. That's how you can kind of, other people can use browser extensions, come to my website, and without giving me their password, they can use my messenger app like their messenger app, basically. And the only difference is that my contact will be at the top so that they can message me reasonably. This is the browser extension that I use. It's called Nost2x. And you basically just put your private key in there. And then whenever an app needs the thing and makes a request, it'll pop up here and you can say forever or authorize for 5 minutes, that kind of thing. And there's a ton of apps like this, like pick the one you trust. And I'm thinking of having a manual way to put private keys into, but it's just so shady. Like people don't want to put private keys into my app. I don't want to be asking people for passwords of any kind. So that's why it's like browser extension or I make it for you is where I am right now at the moment. This is for that, how like the verification thing works, where you can host files. You can do it through DNS with your domain, or you can make a JSON file and just host it in the well-known folder. That's what I'm doing. So you see here, dustinbrett.com.well-known/nostr.json. And I've specifically told my Cloudflare CDN proxy to put cores on this request, which basically means any other website could directly request this URL. Not every URL, but this URL specifically will just, any request will be like accepted basically. And that allows any client to verify me basically. And that's also part of the spec. They even say here to specifically allow cores. So if you follow the spec properly, then it works with the clients too. There's the NIP2 here for contact lists. This is something I'm thinking of adding. I think most relays support it, but at the same time, I don't know how to jive the contact list with the recent messages, or I haven't thought of the best way. Like I know Teams will do like pinned or recent. I was thinking of something like that, or back in the MSN Messenger days where you had like ways to group and like shrink that kind of thing. So if I do that, then I might do this one. NIP number 9 allows you to do event deletion. I want to be able to support this. It's kind of weird because it's like you ask for an event to be deleted, but the relay doesn't have to necessarily do it. So the event might still be there and you could see the message, but the client also can be like, hey, I'm going to respect delete messages and I'm not even going to show you that message. So I think I'm going to do that probably because that's just reasonable. Another one here. Wait, let me not jump. But on the note of the deleting, that's one way for the messages. Another thing here with lists is you could do muting or blocking. Is another piece I want to do. I want to have the ability to block people. Like if I start getting spammed, I want to have some way to deal with that. Because once you pick your public key and people start messaging there, like you just, there's nothing you can do about it. You have to find some other way to be able to ignore these events. And that's where you can make these lists of people or events you don't want to see, basically. And then finally, another cool thing is these NIP38 statuses. I'd like it to be able to like all the time in the background right now, I'm playing WebAmp, which looks like Winamp in my desktop environment. I always have it running on here, and I listen to tunes while I'm working. So what I'd like is while my Messenger app could send which song I'm listening to, which is back in the old days in MSN Messenger, you could do that. When you had Winamp running, you could send what song you're listening to. So that's essentially what I want to do there with this. And again, I think it's totally possible. And these are like temporary events. So again, the relay has to support it. Otherwise, it'll just be too many of these. Or there won't be like any expiration necessarily. But expiration, you can also specify an expire time. So I think I could probably even add that to it actually. Like I could detect when the song changes and its duration maybe, and then I could make the duration the expire time. That's kind of cool. I need to think about it more, but it's really fun to make this kind of thing. So that's something I've enjoyed. But yeah, and soon enough, it's going to be on dustinandbrett.com. You can check out the code. I just wanted to kind of demo what I'm working on so that people in the future will be able to contact me on my website. But that's, and then, yeah, on Fire, and like this is what it'll look like to them. You go on here and you'll see me right there. You can click me and you can just message me. So that'll be in the near future. And yeah, thanks for checking out my app. If you like this video, please throw me a like. And if you like this content and you want to motivate me to make more of it, then please subscribe. And thanks for checking out this video. See you in the next one. Bye.